Hey, um, I want to unpack my work a little bit more um, for you because I have been listening to mythological psychology and understanding. I've also been reading an unpacking of Jung, and I intrinsically am parallel to these concerns in our modern situation. So I'm clarifying in a more understandable and digestible fashion my old brain work. And, I'm the person who's qualified to do that, as many other people would be if they saw it. So I've just been, and the reason I'm doing so now again is because I've been texting a dear friend about my problem of being received and seen. When I say me, I mean the work, my job, the totem, the symbol, the signifier, the pulse, etc. I do stew on the problem of that. That is my dry hump in New Zealand's woke Marxist limit of, everything that we're not allowed to be as primordial human beings anymore. In a materialist economy that does not value the soul. That's called communism. And communism is a form of materialist religion that uses science. And it's also an owned totalitarian state that benefits the few over the many. And the many are expendable these days with biotech and robotics and the fourth industrial revolution. So by complying, New Zealand, you are actually encouraging the death camp of the civilization we live in, which has been proving itself merrily for thousands of years. My people, proto-Irish, English, European mongrel stock were, the Maori of 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago. The Inquisition, the Visigoths, Druids, etc. We had a living classical culture that was raped and skinned alive and burned and eradicated from human history. So anyway, enough of ancient theology and spellcraft. I'm talking about contemporary art, Pacific Rim art, you might say. A more recent incarnation of that evil agenda of civilization. Goes into many questions, of course. I mean, my line of thinking about colonization and mind control. I mean, is it part of God's plan, as it were? Is it actually part of nature? Is it part of the universal structure of, a fruit ripening and decaying? The Great Way? Interesting question, What is the nature of evil? It's... is morality a human invention? Or is it a biological anthropology? So these things are in consideration when we're looking at my work, essentially. Old brain, as I say. Now, am I talking about Douglas Adams' idea of, many idea of the Earth as a living supercomputer, a form of sentient intelligence, the Sophianic myth of the ancients? Sophia being the living goddess of the planet, self-aware, generative, abundant, eternal, pregnant, mother. She fell from the centre of the galaxy and became a planet. One dimension to another, you might say. Old brain. Yeah, it's a great phrase. I really like it. Anyway, hey, let's look at the work as I talk. Thank you for hearing my introduction to the talk. I'm quite good at floor talks, I'm a good-looking man as well. I can wear a suit, or I could be a kind of crazy bohemian. We can discuss that, in the dress rehearsal, if you like. I can promise not to talk about the evil of, paedophilia or feminism in New Zealand or anything like that. I'm quite happy to keep it about art, You won't stray into the personal too much in your floor talk. All right, so, you see a lot of verticals, you see a blur, you see, the light strafing the side, which kind of annoys me. And you go, well, I kind of see a face in there. Is that a face? Oh, look, yeah, there's a stick figure. Oh, it looks like Stickman from fucking that supermarket duopoly thing. No, what is it? Oh, look, he's pulled it apart. Oh, he's pulled it apart. Oh, there's space in between. Oh, it's really crowded. Oh, it's not a painting, it's scary. Oh, what is it? Oh, hey, what's that bit? And kids go, oh, mummy, I see. Mummy, he stuck things in. I do that at kindy. There you go. You've got a very friendly public artwork. Oh, I like the colours. Okay. All right. So we're unpacking old brain. I'm trying to remember my rave to Jeanette now. Oh yes, spirit of the age. So Jung, Jung, for those of you who don't know, was a Swiss psychologist, and he formed theory as a scientist, as a social scientist, around the unconscious based on mythological and psychological investigation over a lifetime. Jung had two terms for his own experience, and this was revealed in something called the Red Book, which was Jung's descent to madness that he illustrated, and only released recently, publicly. Jung talked about the spirit of the age being science and rationalism. And Ian McGilchrist, a psychiatrist, talks about master and his emissary, and there's a correlation between Jung and Ian McGilchrist's findings. Ian McGilchrist talks about brain neurology and experience of... I've also been listening to Maps of Meaning by Jordan Peterson, which is inspiring my talk right now as well. So what we're talking about is expressionism has always dealt with the unconscious. It's always dealt with trauma, and it's always dealt with self-knowing and immediate experience, primacy. That's what my work does. Jung would call that the primordial unconscious. Okay, so essentially Jung's findings between the spirit of the age, science, empirical, rational understanding, and the primordial, the mythic, and the incantatory magic of the unconscious, because the ancients talked in circles around and around and around the unknowable. Like a mantra, like a spell. Because the great way that can be spoken of is not the great way. Okay, so what Jung was sort of finding that within his own psyche, in his own work, in his own study of thousands of human beings and countless manuscripts of ancient mythology and cultural research of the world, was that the unconscious in itself, like lava bubbling through the volcanoes of the Earth's crust, forms a rationality that is way more ordered than the rational mind can ever create. We have constructed a system that is the most mad and irrational, that eradicates life, that kills our immune systems, that tortures children, that kills God. And we call that progress, okay? So we're at a kind of pivotal brink of a created Armageddon. And I say created because there are people invested in this as a war strategy for dominion. Jung was basically saying that the unconscious has a primacy of intelligence that is not our own. That is the old brain, and that is what the ancients knew. That is what the Aboriginals knew. That is what Indigenous people knew. Art is that communion. My art is that communion. I'm flying on 100,000 hours plus of an art practice. I'm qualified. I know what I'm doing, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm discovering, and I'm talking. This is fascinating work. This is beautiful work. This is profound and sacred work. It does need to be seen. Okay, so there's another aspect to my texts to Jeanette. There's a wonderful psychedelic improv band called the Dire Wolves. Don't know why they're called that. It's a good title. They've got an album. I think it might be the lead song from the album, and I brought it on Bandcamp. And I just like the album. I like the song title, and it's that your confusion may become visible. Your confusion may become visible. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful, elegant title for the culture war. And if you don't know what I mean by the culture war, well, just Google it. Again, it's about revelation of unconscious. It's about divination. It's about how we manifest our collective reality in the world. It's about how collective psyche makes the world. We're talking about magic and formation of meaning systems. Your confusion may become visible. It's a little bit like saying the problem is actually a blessing, because what isn't right in the whole system is becoming apparent. And it may shake your whole world apart. It may shake your whole world apart like a cancer, or a job loss, or a divorce, or a death, or a landslide in Wellington, or an earthquake in Christchurch, or a suicide. Okay? It may shake your whole world apart like a stillbirth, or like a tulip coming up in your garden, or like forgiveness. All of these things. It may shake all of our worlds apart by an economy crashing, and money has no fucking meaning anymore. All we've got is humanity. It may shake our world apart like increased, highly charged photons coming into our atmosphere because the magnetosphere is weakening such a lot. True story. Man-made climate change is a fallacy. It's a hijack. It's modern satanic theology. And what's actually happening are geophysical stresses are happening because of the sun. And it's a cyclic 6,000, 12,000 year cycle. It's very simple. So there's an expansion of consciousness. There's a collective psychic response, globalization, yada, 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 turning of the age, yada, yada, yada. It's all in ancient lore. It's all in ancient mythology. It is well known. Scary stuff. I could talk very scarily about other occult mythology, occult alternative narratives, or suppressed narratives, shall we say. And, I'm scratching the surface at, what many people know. But I do spend a lot of time listening to the wise and the learned. And I am quite open-minded. I listen to orthodox narratives too of the scientism's preaching, and there's a lot of wisdom there too. We live in an extraordinary time. And, everyone's reality is precious and sacred. And none of us see eye to eye. And I think that's incredible. Reality is being fragmented and deconstructed, and every field of Western endeavour is a secular mumbo-jumbo. And, your confusion will become visible. So this is an objective piece. I'm not ramming some trippy fucking idea down your throat. The reality of what I'm doing here is both ancient and primordial and futuristic and sci-fi. I am painting in the South Pacific. And they move with the wind. And it deserves to be seen. Yeah. Okay, so, and I'm sure an art academic could say some kind, warm, melted butter words with some peanut butter and honey on it and make it simple, chunk it down. I'm sure that could happen, and I'm quite happy for other people to hang their coat on my coat rack. It's fine. I simply want the opportunity to make more of this, as a servant, as an oracle, as artists are, home birthers. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, that's some more kōrero around my piece, and it is taonga. It's sacred, and I'd really like my people not to abandon me. I kind of assume that that is the case because of New Zealand's indentured slavery, but perhaps there's a fragment of the humanity still available to have interesting artwork on display publicly. I pray to the Most High that could be possible. I have no way of knowing how to communicate apart from communicating well. And in the recent past, every application I've ever made gets ignored, and doesn't really matter how good the work is. You just, not relevant to the conversation or something. How could this not be relevant to the conversation? I don't understand. Perhaps you don't understand what I'm talking about. I'm using the same language, and yet I'm not. And yet I'm not. You see, that's the thing. That's the thing about knowledge and gnosis. It doesn't come through the cookie cutter of your cultural lens, your frame, your scaffold. Okay? You know, it comes through the ancestors and it comes through the dead. But look, there's a handle. Yeah. Okay, on and on and on he could go. And he does. And he does.